first Q.U.B.E launched in 2011 on Steam, it was one of the only games my crappy laptop would let me play. Thank God for that, because what I found was a hidden treasure, a puzzle game like no other I'd played before. First-person puzzle games are rare to come by, though some would say we just recently got two of the best ever in The Witness and another marvelous game, The Talos Principle. Toxic Games, the developers on Q.U.B.E, were tasked with the impossible. How do we build upon our precursor and stand with the greats? They had an answer with their sequel, but was it the right one? Here's our review for Q.U.B.E 2. When you first boot the game, the main menu is not what you would think. A strange gargoyle statue stares back at you with an almost venomous look, as red lights beam on in the background, creating a very sinister feeling. The entire game fills you with the exact emotion it wants you to feel, with the unique lighting and art design present in the main menu. I certainly was not expecting to have my jaw drop at the claustrophobic hallways of ever-ascending cubes sticking out of the walls in various orientations, or the ways in which light reflected off of the ceramic blocks. The studio had a vision and they nailed it. In my years of gaming, never have I stopped to look at the way in which lights were bouncing off of the walls. I can safely say I crossed that one off my bucket list. There's some effects such as black oil, fire, and water here and there that look good, but maybe not as good as the linings of the chambers you were walking in most of the time. Serviceable, I'd say. The colors are very vibrant, with deep reds, burnt oranges, light blues, and dark purples highlighting the environments around them. The best moments are when you're walking and the outside light hits on the side of the purpley pink squares, which then reflect their colors onto the ground below your moving feet. It's very impressive. Though the lighting may be spectacular, I did run into one glitch where the lens flares were extremely intense and pixelated, making everywhere I looked brighter than if you were to look directly into a floodlight. It made J.J. Abrams' Star Trek films pale in comparison. Other than that one measly glitch, everything was flawless, and the art style sucks you into this alien monolith, one that oozes with style and uneasiness.
Each would jump to different parts of the vessel, transported.
What, like teleported?
Yes. Some people lost their memory in tests. Others went mad. A portion were fine, of course. It was difficult to predict.
Is that what happened to me? Jesus! I wasn't expecting that.
You better get used to it. It may just save your life in here.
David Housden, composer for Thomas Was Alone and Volume, was charged to write the music for this game, and to no one's surprise, it was done very well. The music was very reminiscent of the film Arrival. If you're not used to me talking about this movie at every opportunity I have, now's the time to adjust. But seriously, in the same way Arrival's music blurred the lines between diegetic and non-diegetic sounds, Q.U.B.E.'s does that to the same extent. Walking past a strange generator only for a low humming sound to signal the change in music, or climbing to the top of the tower hearing these strange synths. It all made for a very worthwhile soundtrack, though not something I think I'd be able to listen to on a daily basis. It's all very environmental. The voice acting was genuinely a surprise. The woman who voiced Amelia did a very good job, and her performance pulled me through the surprisingly emotional story with good heft to it. The woman who played Emma was also great and played that mysterious and shady character to a T. Overall, very solid voice acting that worked for their characters in the game itself. The actual sound effects of the game were awesome. A block constantly bouncing, a ball smashing up against a wall, fire spurting out of a flamethrower, the oil shooting from the pipes, everything sounded genuine and clear.
No, I do, I understand, I promise.
Story-wise, it, again, reminded me of an Arrival-type plot, where a strange object comes down to Earth and a team must figure out what it is. Obviously, that sounds like I could have attributed those characteristics with most science fiction, but really, after you play it, you'll understand what I mean. The story is surprisingly existential and tells a unique tale through the puzzles in a very clever way. The game gives us a small tease at the beginning in which the main character is walking through what seems like a sandstorm looking up at this looming tower overhead, and that, coupled with the visuals, was just enough to draw me in and make me intrigued. Because it is a puzzle game, the story here shouldn't be the biggest draw, and it actually surprised me as to how interesting it really was. So, I would say that's a plus. Talk about tight. The mechanics present here are just that. Amelia wakes up with gloves on her hand and immediately she is told to use them. These gloves are it, nothing more, nothing less. Everything else is just an object propelled by these gloves, and it was the right decision. When switching to the color blue on her gloves, you are able to place trampoline-like blocks on the ground. Red creates pillars that extend out when the player activates them. Green allows you to spawn a new cube, but once you place another green tile, the one before it goes away. It may seem like there's no depth to it, but the ways in which these mechanics lend to the environment, and even traversal up, down, left, or right, are really unique. The mechanics have to be good enough to get the player to continue and not feel burnt throughout this 5-hour journey. The puzzles are all fun and each unique offerings that play with the mechanics in really wild ways. As mentioned before, oil, fire, tiles that turn, tiles that flip upside down, etc. are all used in astute ways, making the players feel rewarded after silly things like making a block fly over an archway and hit a target or something entirely different. The evolution of the puzzles felt very good. You'd have a longer corridor with multiple rooms at the beginning of each location, explaining to you, without hand-holding, the mechanics of this particular area. Then each of the other one-room areas would take those mechanics and run wild with it. As much as I did like the ways in which the puzzles progressed, the same can't be said about the way the actual game and player progresses. The first time you complete an area, you get transported via stairs or elevators to a room with a reactor and multiple tendrils, usually 4, that open doors after the main room of the area is completed. This happens multiple times and it makes the player stop and say to him or herself, "Oh, okay, it's just like the last area." Another thing that really baffled me is the lack of secrets or hidden puzzles. Unless I'm completely missing something, there wasn't anything out of the ordinary, which was really a bummer, especially due to the mysterious setting. There were some empty parts of a room that made my mind ponder over the idea of absent secrets. Maybe they are there and I'm just a bumbling moron that was actually looking directly at them, but I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt on this one. I wish there was a reason to come back and play it again. A reason to go back through the levels to see what else might be there. Could be neat. A photo mode may have also gone a long way in a game as gorgeous as this. At Boss Rush, we rate on a scale of necessary, recommend, wait, and don't buy. No numbers, no bullcrap. For Q.U.B.E 2, I'd heartily recommend this game. For $25, you can get an incredibly tight, visually distinct first-person puzzle game, whose puzzles evolve in genuine and exciting ways. Though it is completely lacking any endgame content whatsoever, the story is legitimately good and told very well throughout. Via the puzzles, the game cleverly intertwines into the narrative. Toxic Games has taken the success of Q.U.B.E and turned in a great sequel that just isn't quite enough to be top tier, but one that puzzle game lovers should absolutely buy.